This is Profiles in Leadership. It's conversations we're having with Christian business leaders to understand what it means to walk in faith and also lead in business in a way that honors God and honors the community and the people we serve. I am Colleen Bevenour, and today I'm here with Curtis Myers. Welcome, Curtis. Thank you for being with me today.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So, who is Curtis Myers?
Wow, that's such a deep question. Who is Curtis Rice? Uh, my email signature uh, in my church email says his son, right? So I kind of think myself as number one, I'm a son of God. So the idea that I am a son that is loved by his heavenly father
Mm,
and accepted by his heavenly father is who I am. Why is that important to me? Because there's so many different things in my life that have tried to speak to me and tell me who I am that I have to remind myself that my highest and best definition is I'm first and foremost his son. So how that influences me is because I'm his son and I'm his African American son. I'm
mm.
his son and I'm his son that's Panamanian. So I have an immigrant story. I'm his son, and I'm a military kid. So my stepfather was in the military, and so some of those things inform who I am as a person, but it's ultimately weaved under the umbrella of, well, I'm God's son. So
That's beautiful. Curtis, I believe you're a family man.
I am. I'm a husband of Marcia Myers. We have been married now 35 years. We have two beautiful adult daughters. Sharice will be, I can't even believe this every time I say it. It's like she'll be 32 this month. And then Victoria is 26. And Sharice has recently got married in
Oh,
December. So I now have back in December. So now I have a son-in-law, Dadmus. Yeah, and I've got a beautiful dog named Zion, and that is the buyer's household. But yeah,
wow.
I'm a family man. I'm a very proud girl dad, and I'm a former field hockey dad.
Oh,
As one of
wow.
those guys on the sidelines cheering for not just my kid, but all the girls on the team. So I'm one of those.
There are many, many facets to who you are. And
Well,
one of those facets is your work life. You are president of Aspire Youth. Tell us just
mhm.
briefly about what the organization does and who you serve.
Yeah. Yeah, so Aspire Youth Development is a training organization that's really designed. So, how do we help young people find their best versions of themselves and create opportunities for themselves? So, we focus a lot on the areas of workforce development
Okay.
and also working with them on leadership development. So, we primarily work with young people who are out of high school or coming out of high school. But
Okay.
for the students that are in high school, we'll do things around career awareness, exploration, and preparation. For the students who have left high school, we'll either help them find their career pathways, get them into employment, training, and help them find a way to kind of find a best way for them to have their economic mobility as they move forward and establish themselves as young adults.
Wow. So, how did you get into that kind of a work? Is there a story behind that?
Yeah, it's definitely a God story because I was always I love working with young people. I went to college and studied business. I was actually a finance and entrepreneurial management major.
Wow.
Came out of college, worked for GE Capital Finance. Um, didn't feel fuel my soul. Worked for another smaller company, and through a series of events, started working with people more directly with people. So I worked at one point in time, I was a teacher in a small Christian school,
Oh,
and
wow.
then worked for a nonprofit. And that's really what got me on this pathway when I was working with young adults, young adults who were dealing with crisis, some other things. But I was always the youth leader, and when I served in church, I always served in the young adult ministries and stuff of that nature. So over time, I, worked for a larger nonprofit, and then launched Aspire kind of as a part-time thing and was
Mhm.
a passion project. And I was a consultant some schools that I had worked with asked to hire me to do some projects, and over time and series of events was able to in 2014 go full time with Aspire, and really kind of pivoting more from leadership and mentor training with student groups and students to more like, hey, how do I help you find your career pathway? How do I prepare you for the workplace that's ahead of you? And started getting into workforce development.
That's really cool. What do you love most about the work that you're doing?
I think for me, it's like seeing the before and after. Like I have some really cool before and afters, right? Seeing a young person come in who's not sure, who's may have been dealing with some certain challenges and maybe lost confidence, that's not sure where they're going to go, and connecting them to some resources, putting them into some training environments, helping them get prepared, and then seeing them like succeed and saying like, hey, I got it now. Like I know what I'm doing. I've got a career pathway. I'm moving forward. I've completed something. I think one of the things that we don't fully appreciate is the power of finishing.
Mm,
And so many young people that we have worked with, they haven't finished things and finished things well. And so to get them through to complete certain things and then seeing the achievement and the satisfaction from saying, I started it, I gave it my best, and I finished it. And
mm.
now I can see some results of it. I think that's great. But for me, also personally, it's just running into former students, participants, people that I've worked with. I used to be a high school football coach, so I'll be in like a supermarket or something. Somebody, hey, Coach Myers. I'm like, man, I haven't coached football in like 12 years. Like, but yeah, it seemed like people advance in their lives. I was in Ohio this weekend for a my nephew's graduation, and a former colleague that volunteered with me. I've known him since his ending college, going into med school, et cetera. So now he's an anesthesiologist
Oh my
in
goodness.
Cleveland, at the Cleveland Clinic. And so I told him I was in Ohio, and he was like, "Hey, I gotta pick you up." So he picks me up, takes me out to dinner, and we're talking. And he's now, he's married, he's got two kids, and they're both girls, so we're having these girl dad talks and all this stuff, and just the ability to see like the before, during, and after with some folks, it really enriches my heart. It really does.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. So I want to ask you a question that doesn't usually come up in business
Mhm.
conversations, and that's, how and when did your faith become something that you brought into your leadership in an active way?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm not sure when, but I just feel like it's always there, right?
Okay.
I was kind of raised as a church kid, but like most church kids, I had my time of prodigal sonish stuff, and I came back to the faith. But I think it has really shaped me because I think the most important thing is my faith makes me understand that my work is ministry, right? Like what I do is ministry, and I'm here to serve others through the job that I do. So not only do I serve, most people can see as ministry, oh yeah, you serve these young adults and help them find a way, but it's also ministry because I work with so many different partners, and they have different needs. Whether it's our funders, it's service to them to make sure I honor them with the funds that they've given us, use their funds wisely to accomplish the desires that they want, to see the outcomes that they want.
Mhm.
It's working with other collaborative partners who have similar missions or complementary missions, and making sure I deal justly and fairly with them. And I'm also collaborative. So the idea that none of us is as smart as all of us,
Mhm.
and then how do we work together to build? And so to me, that's a direct reflection of my faith, because my values are esteeming others above yourself, um, and honoring and loving your neighbor. So all those things to me shape who I am and how I do business. Trying to be a fair a boss and an owner, the way I deal with the employees, and trying to help build them and shape them,
Mhm.
and be respectful of people who are different. So I think all of those things are directly related to, I believe in Jesus Christ, and he's the head of my life, and he leads me. And there's times when I want to do something and the Holy Spirit says, no, sir, I'm bringing you in. So rein in those emotions at times. And there are times when I've let my emotions get out of sorts, and the Holy Spirit convict you and say, hey man, you got to apologize, or you got to make that right. You got to do that. So I think knowing that this is not just me on my own, it's been the foundation.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You mentioned your values, Curtis, and
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you've ever had to make a hard business decision that cost you somehow because of those values.
Yeah, I remember one time when and I was sharing this with a friend of mine, and we had uh, a budget cut, and he told me, he said, well, you got to eat most of that. So you got to take the pay cut before you pass that on to your people. And I was like, why would you say that? Because I know who you are. And it was more of the idea of sacrificing for others, right? Like, yeah, like the rubber meets the road. I could just say, hey, you're laid off or you're doing this. But he was like, no, you gotta, heavy's the head who wears the crown. Like, you gotta take that. You gotta be the first partaker of that bitter fruit. And so, yeah, so that to me was one of those times when I was like, man, why couldn't I not be a Christian and just be like, hey, it's not my fault, it's your problem, right? Like, but but I think there is that idea of, yeah, sometimes it's easy when the blessings and everything is flowing to praise Jesus, give all glory to God and all that stuff.
Right.
But when you're going through the dark and difficult times, like how do you anchor your faith when you're being tested, when things aren't going the way that you want? How do you stay true to, like, no, be who you are. Don't be who the situation is trying to dictate you to be. And that's always a challenge.
I like that a lot. So you mentioned a situation that was financially based, that was
Yeah,
challenging you to
yeah.
live according to your values. Do you think that God cares about the bottom line of your business?
100%, 100%. Because without the bottom line, we cannot do what we need to do. So I don't think, I think it's always about stewardship, right? I think the idea of, like, wealth and prosperity or whatever, and however that's defined by different people, depending on your business.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's about how you steward something, right? And it's not just the money that you steward, it's the ability, it's the people, it's the relationships, it's the God, why did you give me this? And how do I use it to best bring your name glory by executing what you've asked me to do? So you've given me anything for a purpose. So I literally ran into somebody the other day at an event, and this person was like special counsel to the lieutenant governor. And we were like friends. And I was like, God, what is this? Because everybody was trying to meet the lieutenant governor. And I just started talking to this person. And he was just like, hey, I can get you a meeting with the lieutenant governor. And I was just like, it's so funny because I don't have to strive to do what everybody else was trying to do. The favor of God just opened the door and said, hey, and he shared with me something that happened years ago that blessed him, that gave him a positive feeling about me. And I was like, wow, I don't even remember it like that, but okay. But God was showing me, like, yeah, I've done things in your life for different seasons and different moments. And it might just be for a time like this, but it really was for that time 12 years ago when he needed that. And now the seed is coming back to you in this form, and we'll see where it goes. But I think it's just that mindset of knowing that God really is in control, and go with his flow, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, so good. So let's get really practical, right? So
Sure.
business leaders watching this conversation and they're nodding in agreement. Yes, I agree. But practically speaking, right? You've got a team
Mm-hmm.
to manage, you've got
Mm-hmm.
customers.
Mm-hmm.
How do they know that you're a person of faith? How does it actually show up in what you're doing? Can you think of a situation or speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think for me it's the small decisions and the small actions we take
Okay.
frequently. I think those speak so much more than the, oh, I came to the event and I had my Jesus Christ t-shirt on, right? Because I'm not a person who is intentionally loud with my faith, but I'm very loud with my faith, right? Like I live it, and I'm very like thinking about that. So when I'm in certain spaces, how do I conduct and carry myself? Am I the person that brings joy to the room? For me, one of the great things I believe that God gives me is the ability to be a problem solver, not just a problem identifier. So every room I'm in, I say, God, how do I become a blessing in this space and carry myself in a way that people say there's something different about you? And as the conversation leads, I'll say, yeah, I'm a Christian. Or, some people say, man, I heard you a reverend or you're a pastor. I'm like, yeah, I'm a pastor. I'm a church planter. And I've had people from the Chamber of Commerce say, hey, can you officiate this person's wedding and stuff like that? So it's been all kinds of ways how people
Yeah.
find that you're a person of faith and where you are. But I think it's the consistent small actions that we have to take. Because I feel like so many times people get tired of hearing the gospel and not seeing the gospel. And I think I certainly believe we need to do both, but I think sometimes you can't speak the gospel without showing the gospel. It just undermines it so much. And so I'm not saying that we're as business leaders or as Christians by all means have to be perfect, never get it wrong. But I think people can see the arc of your life and say, no, he or she's different. They're not motivated by the same things as others. They don't treat people the same way other people would treat them. They have more patience. They've got more grace. They've got, there should be fruit of the spirit evident in our daily lives that you know, that speak, that preach. I tell people they're like, oh, well, you minister, an hour on Sunday, or 2 hours on Sunday. I'm like, well, that's accurate, but I also do it like 42 hours during the week too. Like, it's just a different
Very
message.
good.
I'm not
Very
opening up Corinthians, but I'm showing them what Corinthians look like,
good.
without opening the text.
So, Curtis, you mentioned when you explained who you are, you
Uh,
said, I am an African American son of God. You said, I am an
mhm,
immigrant son of God.
mhm.
Um, I'm wondering if you could speak a little to that about being a business leader who is a person of faith and has those additional characteristics, if you will,
Yeah,
and how
I
that
think
influenced you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I believe God uses everything in our lives
Mhm.
to give us perspectives, right? And I'm a military kid, so I lived on military bases growing up, and I had friends who were of every race, creed, and color, and every intersection of that. Military families tend to have a lot of interracial marriages.
Mhm.
So I've been around all types of people, and that has taught me a sense of like respecting people who are different and appreciating them, but also including them,
Mhm.
right? Like to me, I don't I don't subscribe to this anti-DEI stuff. I think it's just like you're missing it. Like the whole idea is to bring the best of us all together. If you embrace it the right way, don't politicize it, just understand the heart of it. Because the Bible is very clear that, there's going to be all nations, tribes, and tongues and people. Like we're all going to be in heaven anyway. So like, let's figure out how to do some heaven on earth here. But I think that shapes my perspective when I go in a room because I'm also aware of those that are marginalized and pushed to the side. I was always a very good student, and I was kind of pushed into like the honors enrichment track, which means for me in my context, I was always one of two black kids in my classes. So I was the black kid who was an outsider with the white kids, and I was the black kid who was an outsider with the black kids because I was in the white classes.
Oh,
And
man.
so that has shaped me in terms of I'm the person that always tries to figure out how to bring people together. And I'm also the person that tries to bring the person who's on the peripheral in. Because I know what it's like to be the outcast,
Mhm.
even in the certain spaces. So I tend to be more inclusionary by nature. And those things have really shaped me. And I think God has used those things, not just for friendships and relationships that I've had, but
Right.
has just given me a sensitivity about things. And then obviously being an immigrant, um, you know, um, quasi-immigrant because I was of a military family, but of Panamanian descent, and seeing how other people view our country and seeing how our country views people from other nations. Sometimes it just breaks my heart because I'm just like, man, there are people who really look up to America and want to be part of this. and America needs those people. Um, but to mischaracterize them and mistreat them, it's just heartbreaking to me. So it just gives me an awareness of others, but it also gives me an awareness of other people's fears. Like I've had those difficult conversations. I've been in rooms when people have said things, and I'm kind of like, you do know I'm black, right? Like, like, but I think sometimes people don't understand the power of their words, and they need some people who can challenge them, but challenge them with grace,
Mhm.
and allow opportunities for reconciliation. And so, people love to say I'm a bridge builder or whatever. I say, yeah, man, but bridges get stepped on. Like bridges aren't glorified. Like other than like the San Francisco Bay Bridge, like what other bridges do people like? Ooh, that's a beautiful bridge. Like, I go over the Burlington Bristol Bridge, but I never wonder how beautiful it is. I just know like I need this to get from here to there. And so bridging people isn't glamorous, but it's necessary. It's essential. And so I think some of the when I describe who I am, some of those things help me be a bridge builder.
And as a CEO who's really, really active in the business community, I'm guessing that dramatically influences how you show up as a business leader.
It does. It does. I think it really shapes the audiences that I'm in, understanding needs of different businesses, because to me it's the same. So not only do I work for the young people that we serve, but I work for the funders, the Department of Labor, the Workforce Development. I work for those people to help use their funds to accomplish the missions that they need and the priorities that they have. But I also work for employers because I'm working for companies to say, I got to make sure you've got a skilled workforce to meet the demands that you're going to have today and tomorrow, and help people find pathways into your industry that they may not have thought of. And so I work for parents who are frustrated because I don't know what is going to happen with this child of mine, and I wanted him to go to college, but whatever, but there's an alternative route. So I think about all those places where I'm like, yeah, Aspire has to help bridge those gaps for people and help connect them, so they understand like the meaningful role that we all play. Like we all need each other. So businesses need the young people need businesses, the public policy funder folks, they need the businesses, the young people. Like we're so interdependent, that if we focus on like how do we how do we connect those dots, we can get there. But if we're always busy looking at the other dot, all the business leaders are wrong, they're doing this, blah, 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 blah. The government is wrong, they don't know how to do this. And I'm like, no, I've met some incredible public servants that work in the government sector. I mean, incredible people. Again, I've met some people that are like, okay, you just here counting down the pension. But I met the same thing with business owners too. I met some young people that are like, absolutely, you're wasting air. But I've met young people that have the grit and the grime that are like, man, if I just had an opportunity, if I had just somebody who would believe in me, if I just had a chance, if I just, you don't know the things I've been through. Like Colleen, I literally had a young person one time come in my office. He might have been like 22, and he had an appointment with one of my staff. And he was early, and I said, "Oh man, Steven's not here." He goes, "Yeah, I just came here a little early. My brother got killed in the barbershop in Philly, and I had to help my uncle like clean up the site." And he said it just like that. And this guy was in a class to, get an IT certification. And I said, "Whoa, hang on a second, what you just?" And I'm just like, "Oh my God, look at the trauma that you've been through." Like, I had to go get a glass of water and catch myself and
Yeah.
just try to talk to him and pray with him just to kind of help him process like the trauma he just experienced. But I was like, how are you still here? Like,
Yeah.
I would be in the bed under the pillow, screaming, crying, kicking. And he's like, "I'm just trying to get better for my life." And I'm just like, man, people don't know some of the stuff that some of these young people are dealing with, what they've experienced, and they're just still going. Like they haven't quit. And so like tell his story, not just the kid who's, oh, they're slackers, they're not doing this. I'm like,
Right.
no, we got to help those kids as well, because you're misclassifying them. Like this kid's was a just amazing person just to overcome what he experienced like an hour before he sat down with me. And I was just like, I'm telling you, it messed me up for like days, because I was like, how do you see that? Colleen, he literally and I never knew this, when like something like that happens, the police take the body, but you got to clean up the crime scene.
Uh,
So like, I'm like, he's literally telling me about what he was doing. And I'm like, man, this kid's, you already a winner because you showed up for this appointment, which is you. If anybody had a reason to call out, you had a reason to call out. But the fact that you're still going and you still want to go and you're still like, help me get there. I'm like, man, I'll go through a brick wall for you, man. I'll go through a
yeah.
brick wall for you.
Oh, that's amazing. And I would guess like that was not the only defining moment in this young man's life.
I'm sure.
There's an
I'm
entire
sure.
lifetime that precedes it to
I'm
harden
sure.
him to that he just protects himself from the impact of those events and just moves on. And
Yeah.
that's really tragic to hear that that's still happening.
Yeah. It's real.
And that, that makes me think about the hard seasons we all face, right? And I'm guessing that while I know you're a very successful businessman, business leader, my guess is that you have faced some really difficult seasons where you got tested.
Yeah. I've
And
had many.
can you talk about one where you knew it
Yeah.
wasn't just a blip, but this was going to be a test for you and kind of what happened to you in that situation?
Yeah, so a lot of my work is government contracting type work. And there was a season, and quite honestly, it's always a possible season, right? I just never know where things are going to be. But we were really going through it financially.
Mm,
And it was right before, it was actually right before COVID, now I think about it. And
okay.
this is my it had to be God moment. And I remember I went to Trenton to a bidders conference, and it was supposed to only be like one session, or maybe it was supposed to be like 80 people there, but it was such a demand that it ended up being a couple hundred people, and they had to like break it up into multiple sessions. And I was in this room and I was looking around, and it wasn't David versus Goliath. It was David's left shoe versus Goliath. Like I felt that small in that space with all these different organizations from all over. And I said, man, like, why am I even here? Why am I going to waste the ink? you know? Um, and I remember doing the application and getting the call and like, what? We got it? Like, holy cow. And it was so like, I know it was God. Like I was just like, I just know. Like,
Yeah.
I was talking the other day at church and I was preaching. I said, it's one thing to know about God, it's another thing to know him. Right. Like, so when you know him, like there's just some things that you like, you're not going to convince me of who Jesus is just because I've seen him work.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, hey, I'm going to be able to finally be able to offer healthcare benefits. To at that time, I had 3 employees or 3 or 4 employees. I was able to offer healthcare because now we got to that critical mass. And, I could just see like, God, you moved and you were doing it. But I even remember when I first went full time, it was a series of events that weren't planned, but I saw in hindsight, I saw how God was orchestrating it.
Hmm.
And I'm full time and I'm working on my first major proposal by myself in this office. And it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and with like tears in my eyes. I'm sitting to myself like, God, it's just me. Like, I don't have a team. It was Curtis, Aspire was Curtis Myers. I was the chief. I was the janitor. I was the admin. I was any position you wanted, Aspire. That was me. And I'm sitting there, it was like 3 in the morning. I'll never forget it. I can literally see myself in that room. And
Hmm.
with tears in my eyes, I'm crying out to God, like, how can I do this? And he's like, it's not just you. I'm with you. And I was able to get that was the first contract when I went full time that was able to
Hmm.
sustain me and my family. And I had a daughter in college. Like everything about it was kind of like, are you sure you should be doing this?
Yeah.
But I did have a confirming word. I had met with this consultant and she was doing like kind of like redoing my resume and kind of like sucking my hair. Here's some of the skill sets that you really have acquired, and you should maybe think about doing this. And then she said, well, what about this Aspire thing? Like, I know it's been a part-time thing, something you've done on the side and whatever. You think maybe this is the time to just go for it? And I'm thinking to myself, man, I got a daughter that's about to go into her junior year of college, and I'm primary uh, breadwinner in the family, and just everything. And I was like, but when she said it, it was almost like God was saying, "Come on now, go ahead and prove me, just prove me." And I was like, man, maybe you're right. And it literally wasn't 3 weeks after that appointment. I get called into a meeting um, with one of the county officials, and they basically sat down with me and they said, "We want to work with you. We have some resources because we've got a couple of people that are out on maternity and disability, and we have a project that we need done, and we know that you can do it. Can you do this for this?" And I said yes, and yeah, I went right down. I walk out the room, and I was like, "Oh, Jehovah Jireh!" Like there's the ram in the bush. Like I was like, okay, drop the knife. Like, okay, come on, let's go back down the mountain, man. We good. God has provided a sacrifice. So it was just, I've had too many of those moments that have given me a confidence as a business leader that, yeah, there are some difficult times, there are some challenges that we face, but God is there and He's in the details.
Yeah. It's it can be a really lonely walk though, right?
Oh, 100%.
So who
100%.
who did you lean on during that time?
It's interesting. I do have a couple of friends who are Christian business people. And
Mhm.
so I was able to, pray with them and have them just encourage me. My wife obviously encourages me. Um, but then I also have a couple of friends that, they're not, well, I'm not going to say they're not believers, but they're believer adjacent. They're believer lights. And so I think just being able to have their counsel. So,
Mhm.
when the Bible talks about, there's safety in a multitude of counsel,
Right.
it's just having good counsel. Some of them I've had great pastors that have pastored me and encouraged me, but I've also just had good people that God has placed in my life
Mm.
that have given me different perspectives. And I can hear things, like I can hear God's voice in people's comments at times. And I think for me, those were pivotal times when I just needed to be encouraged by others, and knowing that there's brighter days ahead.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the business leader who might be listening to you, who
Mhm.
doesn't know the Lord yet. And
Yeah,
it's just it's a tough road. You know this, right?
yeah,
You're managing everything
mhm,
and you're facing the highs, you're facing the lows, and yet you have this strength that's coming from somewhere else. What how would you come alongside another leader that doesn't yet know him when they're going through
yeah,
the biggest trial?
yeah. I would say you have to move past your own strength, your own abilities, um, and really get to know him because he's really the source of that, right? He gave you certain abilities, but he also he sees bigger, he sees further,
Mhm.
sees deeper than any of us can see. And so, like, I personally need him. I need him. I want him. I need him, right? Like, I need Christ in my life. And I would just encourage a person to invite them into that relationship because
Mhm.
there is a comfort. Being a Christian doesn't mean that you won't go through a storm. It just means that you've got somebody to get you through the storm.
Yeah.
You
Has your
know,
faith ever wavered in those storms?
yeah, I mean, without doubt. But I think it's kind of like a lighthouse. It comes back around. Like it's like I said, because when you know him, I might not like the situation. I may not like what I'm experiencing right now, but I
Right.
always go, but God, you're able. Like, God, I know that you will. It doesn't always seem pretty and easy in the way we want. And to be honest, many times it's because of my mistakes. It's not like, sometimes I always say like we give the devil too much credit. Like sometimes it's like the devil didn't do that. You did. Like you missed it, right?
Yeah.
But God's grace is so amazing, and the ability to repent and go to Him and to be able to get redirected. I mean, to me, it's invaluable. It's invaluable.
And everything isn't always dark, right? There are
No, there's plenty of
wins and great
great.
mountaintop experiences.
Yes.
Can you think of a win or a mountaintop experience that you knew, other than ones you've told me about already?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
were like, that wasn't me.
So the funny thing is, I just shared with a staff person yesterday that they were one of my mountaintop experiences. So
Really?
check this out. So really, so I was telling her, and I said, listen, I want you to know how much I appreciate you and what you bring to this team. I said, because I said, I don't know if you're a spiritual person or you have faith, but I said, I have faith. And I said, God bless me when we were able to find you. I said, because we literally had received notice that we were awarded this award from the Economic Development Authority. But so we started the interviewing recruiting process for the position.
Mhm.
And something got held up at EDA, and it was taking longer to get the contract approved, finalized, and funds dispersed. So we had to stop the interviewing process. We had to just stop it and just say, we just got to wait. And it took like 3 months before everything kind of just was like, here you go forward, go west. Had it happened when I thought it should have happened, I would have hired the wrong person. Because I was literally had the mindset like I wasn't wowed by this person, but I was like, I think they'll be okay. I was settling, and I was like, I think well, we can make it right. Like, yeah. I had some concerns, but I was like, yeah. And then 3 months later, we reopen it, and now this person comes in and interviews, and I kid you not, Colleen, by the time she walked out of the interview and go into the parking lot, I literally said it was like three of us interviewing. I said, man, should I just go back and tell her, like, come on back in here. Let's go ahead. Let's type up this offer letter. Like, I know we told you we got to interview more people and we'll get back to you early next week.
Right,
But who
right.
am I kidding? Who am I kidding?
That's
Like,
so
come
good.
on. And then she started and she's just added so much. And I'm like, man, that's God. Like I couldn't have like Curtis in his own strength was really ready to make that decision and
Wow.
was settled in his mind, like, yeah, that's right. It's tough out here in the marketplace. You got to get what you
Right.
and then just delayed, that little delay opened up like, oh my gosh, you're adding so much to our team. Not perfect, like I'm not perfect. So we've had a couple little things, but I was literally telling her like, hey man, you have been great for us. And she just felt so affirmed. I'm like, no, 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 like you're not doing don't ever think that when we have a disagreement or just whatever, like that's not a reflection. That's just like I'm learning you, you're learning me, you're learning Inspire. We're like figuring this out. But I think like you're great. And I just started telling like this is some of the things that I've seen that I'm excited about the future of what you're going to do here with us and what we'll be able to do for others together. And to me, and I just told her like I would not I can't even believe that you saw our Indeed ad and applied and it was like it was just
Right.
everything about it to me was just like that's God like
That's so cool.
yeah. And once again like I thought it was a bad thing that the stuff got delayed. And
Right.
it was like the best thing ever.
That's a great story. I love it. All right. Take a break, get a drink of water.
Yeah.
Wet whistle. I just have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
We good till two?
Yep. Yep.
All right. So I'm wondering, based on the story you just told me, I think about the work that you do at Aspire Youth or other work that you're involved in. What's something that your organization has done that you are just particularly proud of?
Wow. There's so much, but so I think for me, one of the things, so we're just now into this pre-apprenticeship in construction stuff. And
Yep.
it started like maybe 2 years ago when we first got into it. And I remember seeing it a while ago and I was like, I don't think that's us. I don't think that's what we do. But now that we've gotten into it, like, after the 12 weeks of training and everything, and we do the graduations,
Right.
the stories of the people as they get ready to go into work and what it meant to them and how it helped them. I mean, some of the stories of like, man, this has really turned my life around and opened my eyes to stuff I couldn't see. I had one, I had this one um, parent that came up. Her son was like, I guess he was like 22, 23. She came up from North Carolina. He didn't know she was coming. And she was so proud because she was like, he just doesn't finish stuff. And he finished this. And he's excited about that. And I just wanted to be here for him. And I wanted to meet the people that helped my son. And it
Oh,
was just like, you know, I was just like, wow. Because I really believe, like, yeah, this young man is gonna, his life is gonna change. And so sometimes when I see those stories, it just, you know, it's like, yeah, we can go another day. We can go another day. We can go another day.
yeah. Awesome. Beautiful. So Curtis, you've accomplished so much. You know, we've talked over time about different things you've been involved in, different nonprofits, different board seats you're holding, your own business, your marriage, your fatherhood, right? All of that stuff. And when you look back, maybe, I don't know, however long you need to go back, and you wish there was something you knew back then,
Mhm.
right? Right. What would that be?
Wow, that's a great question.
That as
I
a
mean,
person of
there's
faith, leading a business in the world of today as a person of faith, what would you go back and tell your earlier self?
um God is working all things together for your good.
Oh, amen.
Like some of the difficult times, some of the times that I thought were great times,
Yeah.
God was weaving it all together. Like, yeah, just like it's okay. Don't get too high in this season and don't get too low in this season. God is weaving it all together. Like it
Mm.
will make sense later. Just stay faithful, stay consistent. You don't know what today's challenge is going to bring, and you don't even know what today's celebration is really all about.
Yeah.
Like God is doing some stuff, and just stick with it. Yeah,
Yeah. Sometimes it's interesting to sit in your moment and look at the dots and wonder
yeah,
how he's going to connect those dots.
yeah.
What is
Sometimes you just gotta. Sometimes it's one of the hardest things to do is just to like stay present in the moment and not try to figure it all out. Just say like,
yeah.
God, what do you want me to do? I remember one time I was going through a personal dark time, nothing to do with business. And I was talking to my pastor and I was overwhelmed by the grace of God. And
Mm,
I said, I don't know why God loves me so much, but I'm grateful to be his son. And he said, without a pause, he said, stay in that posture.
oh,
Just stay in that posture. And that's when I changed my email signature to his son.
love it.
Like it was just a reminder. And so every time when I see that email signature, it just reminds me, not just of that moment, but just like, you don't have to perform for God. You just have to be his son. And
Mhm.
because you're his son, you will perform. But
Yeah.
your performance doesn't make you a son. Your sonship causes you to perform. And so it just, yeah, but that was one of those moments.
We are working, all of us, in growth stage businesses and large corporations, right? And sometimes in the larger corporations, it's particularly challenging to, quote, bring your faith to work. What advice do you have for folks that are, it's not quite as a simple organization, maybe as growth stage business, but it's a complex, huge
Yeah,
organization, and there's rules that govern things that
yeah.
you're allowed to talk about. And so, what advice do you have for business leaders in those settings?
Yeah, I think, St. Thomas Aquinas, right? Preach the gospel all the time, sometimes with words, right? Like, I think we underestimate how much the way we carry ourselves speaks.
Hmm.
So, yeah, if you're in a major corporation, yeah, it may not be the place, or any place may not be the place or the environment to have a Bible study in class at work. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. but I do think you can show people the Bible with your life. And I think we miss those opportunities because we think the only spiritual thing is for me to open up the book and teach them about the Good Samaritan. But what would it look like for people in corporate settings to live out the principles of Jesus every day and teach people the Good Samaritan? So what does that look like? It looks like, hey, if I'm a business leader in a major corporate environment and we have an opportunity to take advantage of our customer, and I say, no, that's not the best way for us to serve and meet their need. Like we can meet their need and it will still create us a profit or build us a long term. Like you're literally living out the Good Samaritan message, right? You're willing to get involved in something that you could pass by because it's inconvenient or it will cost you something, but you know it's something that will enrich your life further. And so I think people seeing what it looks like to be a Christian more than us just always feeling like we need to profess. As people see, it creates opportunities for us to be led by the Spirit, to have those Spirit-filled conversations. One thing I've learned is that when you do what God asks you to do, the opportunities will present themselves. I've had people come and ask me to pray for them or pray for their family members or pray for a situation. I've had people who have asked me for family advice or kid advice or parent advice. And, me coming from the perspective of a person of faith, I've had people ask me to officiate weddings, just stuff like that. But it's not because I pushed it. It's because people saw something, saw your good deeds, glorified your Father, which was above, and it opened doors. And then I think you have to be bold in what that looks like. Bold, but not reckless. And that's a challenge, right? How do we be bold? How does somebody in a meeting say to somebody, when they announce that they're dealing with cancer, instead of just saying, hey, I'll give you my good thoughts or well wishes, say, like, man, I'm going to be praying for you. Like I've done that with people like, hey, man, what'd you say? What's your uncle's name? I'm going to share that if you don't mind, can I share that with the prayer list of my church? Would that be okay? Yeah, I'll appreciate that, and you'd be surprised how that can open a conversation. And so just, being wise as serpents and harmless as doves, having the right intent and the right posture, spirit of humility, I think that does create those opportunities. Because I think the benefit about being in a large corporation versus, we're a small company, there's 10 employees here, but I think your impact can be so magnified.
Yeah. You can impact your employees, your customers, your community, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I have one last question for you.
Please.
Why did you say yes to this conversation?
Oh, because you're Colleen.
Okay. So why did you say yes to this conversation?
So I don't know. I was, at first I was a little initially bashful and but I was like, I think it's a really good topic. I think it's really good what you're doing. And I think it's important to have this conversation. So I typically have my church conversations and I have my work conversations. And now I'm having a conversation that marries them both.
Yeah.
I live in both spaces, but in terms of being able to have an intentional conversation like this, I had a similar conversation like this with a young man. He's a believer, and he was just asking me, not these questions, but he wanted to know about faith and following God in business. But I think it's an important conversation because we just need to have it, because we need to see the practicality of what it means to follow Jesus every day. People can share testimonies of, healings or deliverances or breaking addictions and stuff like that. But just the everyday, what it looks like to be a Christian business person and lead with that, I think is important.
I love that. Thank you.